Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Liberian Dream. Cannot believe it. It's already 1 year, almost a year. January, we started this conversation with you all, and you all have been participating. It's good to be back here. For those of you who are joining us, say hello so we know you're here, so we can recognize you as well. I see Emmanuel Jackson, season greetings. Dr. Edison Pachubo, season greetings. All of you who've joined, just say hello so we know you're here, and then we can say hello to you. We're going to be doing the year in review. As you all know, my name is Nupolu Johnson, and I'm here as your host. We have some very provocative topics this year that we talked about, we chatted about. Some you disagree, some you vehemently agree as well, whichever way you went. We will be reviewing these conversations, and I will start with the first one. We talk about cultural understanding and community-driven solutions. If you remember, January this year was the first show we had when we talk about this. And I featured three bright young Liberians. Abigail Dauber, Queenie Collins, and Robertson Boylan were the three young Liberians that we featured. Now, let's review that. I talk about in our show telling Liberians to stop using your culture as marketing content. That was the first thing we talk about. What is the understanding of our culture? Is it something for entertaining guests? Or is it something that holds our very identity and value as a people? Or is it a way of life? Because we have this attitude in Liberia, whenever we get international guests or big days or holidays, then we bring out our culture as a content for marketing. As soon as those events are over, we take our culture and put it back in the trash bin. We denigrate it, we insult it, we don't support it, we do not even identify with it. But then we bring it out. Whenever it's time, we get someone ahead of state of visiting or whatever that is, then we bring our culture to use it as marketing content. So if you remember, in our show, I told Liberia, it's time to frown upon that. Our culture is not only good for marketing content. Our culture should be our way of life. Regardless of our disagreements with it, regardless of the things we think we need to change, it is our way of life. And it is only us that should be working to improve it, to make it better. So we had a conversation. We also talk about, I made a comment. If you tell your children to believe that Santa is real, then what is your argument against our traditional oracles? Right? Westerners came and made you call it the country devil. So we walk around and call this thing the country devil to the point where we don't even know the difference between a regular entertainment max dancer versus what we call our oracles of our traditional cultures. Right? If Santa is real, you believe that and you tell your children that. And then our culture that is ever so real, the oracles of our culture that are ever so real and potent, you make yourself to believe that it should not be respected, that it is not real. But then in the same vein, you come to another person's culture and take their culture fairy tales and cultural myth and make your children to believe it. But then you tell them, say, our traditional oracles are not real, right? I had a conversation, and this is where we talk about cultural understanding. This is our problem in Liberia. We've lost the salt of who we are. We think we are too good for our culture. Let me tell you today, you can never be too good for who you are. You either embrace yourself and work on making yourself better, learning more things, adding to yourself. You cannot replace yourself. It is not possible. You'll be living in perpetual crisis, which is what we see in Liberia today, right? By the way, you can make a comment. Those of you who want to contribute, I'll be pausing to read comments throughout the show. I also talk about traditional institutions, our official government institutions in Liberia, if you don't know it. The Liberian Constitution says we have a dual legal system. We have the Western-style legal system, and we have what we call customary laws. I'm not saying it. For those of you who haven't read it, read the Liberian Constitution. It is the Liberian Constitution that says so. If the Liberian Constitution says customary law has jurisdiction in Liberia, then guess what? Our traditional oracle, which many of you have believed Westerners to call it country devil, also has legal jurisdiction in Liberia as protected and provided for under the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. This is not Leo saying it. This is what your Constitution says. But because we don't go back to these things, that is a problem. And what you don't realize is that customary law, which is under the jurisdiction of our traditional people, that's what customary laws means. It means our traditional laws actually protect and benefit majority of our population than the Western-style legal system we get in Monrovia, where justice is for sale. If you don't have a lot of money to pay a lawyer, you're on your own. If you don't have a lot of money to bribe the judges and bribe people beyond that, you're on your own. So the Western legal justice system does not work for our people. It only represents and protects the interests of maybe 10% or less who can afford to buy justice. Customary law is what protects the majority of our people. So let's go back to it. Let's be honest. That's what the Constitution says. Until you can change it, that's what the law is. Let's talk about languages. I spoke about languages, and I said our languages hold the key to our identities and must be the foundation of our learning in our schools, right? How can we take the French language and manage to put it in our curriculum? But we say it's too difficult for Bassa or Pele or Gisi or Kran or Gio or Mano or Mandingo. How is that possible? And then when you talk it, people start to ask, oh, how will we teach it? Because it is not written. Let me tell you today, education is not the same as reading and writing. Those are two different things. You can be literate and be very uneducated. You can be illiterate and be very educated. Let's break it down. Reading and writing is not the same as education, because I think we've kind of misguided ourselves in Liberia by thinking that if you can read and write, that means you are educated. Let me break the news to you today. You can be able to read and write English and be very, very uneducated. You can be unable to read or write English and be extremely educated, right? So please stop despising our oral forms of education. Oral form of education is just as equally powerful as a written form of education. That is the reason why many of you can be on YouTube looking for inspirational speakers who can mesmerize you, right? They didn't need to write a whole book. They gave a 15-minute speech and you are mesmerized by it. So you have despised, alienated, and marginalized some of the most educated people in our country, in our history, our traditional elders and leaders, who many of them are more sophisticated and educated than your doctors who went to Western schools. But simply because they cannot read and write English, simply because they're not writing English in books, you have equated them to being uneducated because they speak their languages, because they are more expressive in oral forms and not in written forms. The art of writing is a very modern thing, just so you know, especially when you limit it to reading and writing English. That's what I say. So you can teach our languages in our school, and let me tell you how you can do it. Many of you who follow me doing that show, I actually said it. Education is not limited to reading and writing. Our languages, most of them may not be written, right? Most of them may be oral. Let me take that argument and agree with it. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Go to Grand Bassa. That's where the Bassa people are, right? Why is Bassa not taught in every school from ABC to grade 6? Don't ask me for Bassa book. Teach it orally. The same way when our children go to school, ABC, when you start teaching them English, you can teach them to be memorizing and singing songs, right? When the kids get to school in kindergarten, ABC, primary 1, primary 2, they don't know how to write or read. In fact, many of them can already recite the ABC without being able to recognize the letter A. What is wrong with teaching Bassa the same way in What is wrong with mandating all schools in Grand Bassa County that from ABC to grade 6, Bassa must be taught? If it is not written, it must be taught in an oral form. So guess what? Anybody who lives in Grand Bassa and went to school in Grand Bassa, you will be able to speak Bassa. That's where the foundation starts. Until we get to the place where we can start to transform it and develop it into written formats, let's start to appreciate it. Let's start to make our children embrace it. Let it be part of their very foundation so they can feel it's part of them. If you teach Bassa to a child from ABC to grade 6, I don't care what you do, it's part of who they are. Go to Lofa, where we got the Mandingos, we got the Pele, we got the Loma, we got the Kisi, we got the Bandi. And at 5, at least those are the dominant tribes. Teach, mandated that all 5 should be taught in schools in an oral way. And mandated that every student between ABC and grade 6 must learn how to operate or function in one. You don't need to learn all 5. Those of you who are ones and interested in languages, you want to learn all 5? Great. In fact, some kids might learn multiple, more than one. But mandated that each of these children will learn one. What is wrong with that? And people will ask me, who are the teachers? Like I said, the moment you stop looking at education to be the equivalent of reading and writing English, then you will know there are already teachers in Lofa that can teach Bandi. There are already teachers that can teach Loma. There are teachers that can teach Mandingo. There are teachers that can teach Pele. Bring them into our school. Our educational experience has to be a very rich experience where our children are being taught to appreciate, embrace their very foundation, and ensure that it is maintained and passed down from generation to generation. It cannot be about who knows how to read and write English. No, that is not enough. It is not enough. It is not. And those of you, I will read some of the comments later, but let's take this a little bit more. That's doing every county. Go Cape Mom. The Vai people there, I think we get the Mandingos in Cape Mom too, right? Go Bummy. Do the same thing. All of the dominant tribes in this county, these tribes should be taught in our school from ABC to kindergarten in an oral form while we work on developing it into the written forms that it should be. Right? Let's go further down. Another topic I took on this year was the issue of dual citizenship. And I said I disagree with those who are arguing on the way they presented their preposition one or dual citizenship. Because dual citizenship is not a political argument. People made it about people in the diaspora wanting jobs. People made it about the people coming from the diaspora. No. Dual citizenship is never and was never and should never have been a political argument. It is an economic opportunity and an economic driver for Liberia. Hear me out. Before I tell you what I mean by that, let me give you the history. Do you know that 3 of our presidents were from Barbados? I'll leave you right there. Just go Google it and find out their names. But I'll leave it right there. Let's look at the history of citizenship in Liberia. Citizenship has been the tool that has been used to kill, marginalize, destroy our country. Every time we talk about citizenship in the history of Liberia, it was talked about from a place of exclusion, right? Think about it. 1847, when the settlers arrived in Liberia, our brothers and sisters who were enslaved in the West, who got their freedom and came back to what is now called Liberia. They decided to set up citizenship and say women did not have the right to vote. They decided to set up citizenship and say you must be property owner before you can vote. That means you must have a legal form of property ownership before you can vote, even though they knew that our traditional people had a different system of how they viewed property. It was communal. It was not individual thing that you could own on paper. But they did that to marginalize all of our people. So from the very onset, when citizenship was designed, it was designed to exclude the majority and only benefit the minority, about 10% of the population. I said so. If you think I lie, go and read your history. Then let's fast forward. Citizenship of marginalization was the tool of oppression used in Liberia. Always, whenever they thought about citizenship, their mindset was, who can we exclude? It was not about who do we legitimately include. They always thought about who should we include. I mean, they were always about who should we exclude, not who should we include. Especially those who belong to the family. And they did that by marginalizing the majority of the population. Now let's fast forward. Our brothers and sisters who decided that they were part of the so-called natives at the time, who were oppressed, many of whom were from the families of the oppressed, decided that the only thing they could do was to fight. And legitimately so, what the True Wing Party has set up in Liberia was inhumane and needed to be taken down. But what did they do? The moment they overthrew William Aaron Tolwa and the True Wing Party, immediately they started to also think about who they can exclude also. They did not think about who they could include. Though. They started thinking about how they can make themselves super citizens over everybody else. Everybody else. They wrote in the Liberian Constitution, Article 97, that they can never be persecuted in any court in the world for crimes they were committing, including the overthrow of a legitimate government, including the mass murder, including the execution of people on firing squad without any trial, including all of the crimes they were committing. They wrote in Article 97 of the Liberian Constitution that nobody can ever persecute them for it. And it's still in your constitution till today. So let me bring it to today's day. In my opinion, this era that we are in is the first opportunity for Liberians to experience citizenship based on inclusion of all of those that legitimately belong. Let's not blow it away. That is the reason why we have to remove the issue of dual citizenship from the sphere of political arguments and bring it to a place of economic argument, a sense of belonging and reuniting our family, the Liberian family. Let me give you one step. Citizenship Birth citizenship, natural born citizenship. You did not have a choice in it. You didn't choose to be born in Liberia. You didn't go to God and consult with him for them to born you in Liberia. No, you did not have a choice. That is why they say natural born citizenship is inalienable. That means nobody can take it away. God gave it to you. You did not determine to be born in Liberia. To get another citizenship, to get an American passport or a British passport or an Australian passport, is not a right. It's a privilege. Because guess what? Not all Liberians have that same access. Only those of you who are in our country, and not even all Liberians living in those countries have that access. So it is not a right. Your natural born citizenship is a God-given right. Your naturalized citizenship is a privilege. So what we do in human society and the way we've constructed laws is that your right is something you are entitled to. A privilege is something you pay for. So having a car, owning a car is not a right. It's a privilege. So why not we turn this argument into an economic argument and say, here's what we'll do. We would not take, Liberians will always maintain their natural born citizenship, but what we would do, we will make them pay their fair dues for having access to privileges and enjoying privileges that their other citizens cannot enjoy. I'm in favor of a dual citizenship tax. I think it's a smart, progressive way of looking at dual citizenship. If you hold an American passport on top of your Liberian passport, that should never affect your Liberian citizenship. However, within the jurisdiction of Liberia will make you pay for that privilege of holding an American passport, so that those that are in Liberia don't have the same privilege can know that, okay, if that tax is $200 a year, let's say I'm just calling random amounts here. Don't take that as a policy. If that tax is $200 a year, that means the man in Liberia who not get the same privilege, or the man who living in America who not get the same privilege to hold an American passport can know that to hold that privilege comes at a cost. And the person that holding it, you got no right to envy them because they are paying their fair dues. On top of that, citizenship has two sides. It has rights and responsibilities. So one of the responsibilities can be you must own property in Liberia or asset no less than 5,000 United States dollars in value. Whether that property, whether that house, whether that business, whatever it is, you must have something in Liberia that is in real value that you can be held by. So tomorrow when you go there, you won't cause trouble, you run away, or you refuse to pay your taxes. When you arrive to RIA, they put your name in the computer. They say, my brother, you owe 3 years in taxes arrears. You haven't paid your tax arrears. You won't argue. They say, no problem. You can get on the next flight and go back to America. But you shall settle your tax arrears before you enter this country. And you keep it building until it gets to $5,000. LRA has the right to confiscate your properties. Those of you who live in America, I don't need to tell you, try owing IRS in the US. Try owing them taxes more than 2 years and see what will happen to you. We are okay to live under the jurisdiction of these laws in other countries. But when we go to our own country, then we turn it into a political argument as to who we can exclude and who we can benefit. I made an argument the last time, I'll make it again. This is, if we're not careful with dual citizenship, it could be the planting of the next Liberian Civil War. Because you forgot, it was the exclusion of Liberian citizens from the body politics of our country that led to the Civil War. You forgot. We started again another one to find all the people that we can exclude and marginalize simply because we say, and they went to other countries and take citizenship, let's cancel all of their birthright citizenship because they took other citizenship. Don't forget, that means say, if you think what I'm saying doesn't make sense, then you own your own. But let's go down to the citizenship issue. No, let's leave it. Let's go to the next one. Another big one that I talk about. The University of Liberia. The University of Liberia right now has no relevance to the emerging needs of the Liberian economy. Zero. The University of Liberia is unable to be responsive to the needs of Liberia as a country, which means it has lost its relevance. And it is the greatest injustice you can do. I call it the injustice of miseducation. You take the whole young generation of a country, put them in what is supposed to be a university, miseducate them, and lie to them that you're giving them quality education. It is practically impossible to deliver quality post-secondary education in the current status of the University of Liberia. So the nature of education we have at LU from way back, normal day when we were established, is what we call research intensive based university education, right? mostly based on theories and research. Now, that stuff we photocopy from the West. It works in the West because the West has the foundations in place by which research-intensive based education can thrive. In Liberia, our story is different. It cannot work. So it is time to transform UL. It was not even time. It was time 10 years ago to transform UL into a technical college or a technical university. Make it valuable to the Liberian story. Let UL become the hub for economic growth. Let it become the hub that drives economic productivity in the Republic of Liberia. Let UL be the place, by the time you're in your last year, you are already being looked for on the market. You're teaching all the funny things in sociology, business management, and all these things that you don't have the ability to deliver quality education for. You're teaching all these highly theoretical, research-based things, trying to deliver it when you don't have proper textbooks. Teachers are still printing pamphlets. You have zero facilities. You cannot even maintain Wi-Fi. Turn the thing to a technical university, a technical college. What Liberia needs now for economic growth, as its economic engine, the type of investors Liberia needs now are carpenters, bricklayers, tile layers, engineers, plumbers, nurses. That's what the country needs now. How will you leave that and start training a bunch of people that the only way they will find a job is when they go to government? And you guys think this stuff is voodoo. It's not voodoo. Germany did it before, and that is why Germany still relies on. Germany has one of the lowest youth unemployment rate in the world. After World War II, Germany's situation was worse than Liberia. Germany was basically wiped off the map. Young people on drugs, ex-combatants, economy is zero, people running away from Germany, people dying from starvation in the streets, drug addicts, illegal drugs everywhere. That was the story of Germany after World War II. What did Germany do? Germany instituted a system of technical education. And because of that today, Germany has one of the world's strongest economies. And you can hear German engineering. In Germany, 52% of all young people go to technical colleges. They don't go to university. In fact, before you go to university in Germany, you must have gone to a technical college to be able to go to university in Germany. And that is the reason why unemployment is extremely low in Germany, because by the time a young person leaves high school, go to a technical college, they're already guaranteed to be a productive addition to the economy and not a liability to the economy. What sense does it make in Liberia when you have a university that produces the highest liability on the Liberian economy instead of adding productivity to the economy? The University of Liberia is a liability to the Liberian economy. So transform it to a technical college or a technical university. When you do that, another benefit will be you don't need to go look for 2x4 PhDs to come teach. You can start hiring what we call industry-based professors. Now, industry professors are people who don't have PhDs, but are people who are excellent in their field, who have a long track record and experience. Electricians, plumbers, all who went to be there, and most of them stay around, who got quality education, can now become professors at LU. They can become industry professors. They don't have to be PhDs. PhDs are research-based professors. Industry-based professors are people who teach the practical, who have the experience. Most research-based professors don't do the practical. They lay out the theoretical framework for you, and then the people who do the practical take it. Anyway, let's move on. I got other topics that we went through. That was with LU. I said also that Liberia's biggest problem is the Liberian diaspora. The Liberian diaspora right now is the greatest threat to stability in Liberia. The greatest threat to stability in Liberia is the Liberian diaspora. Imagine, those are all who left Liberia. Whether you went through refugee camp, whether you came straight by the plane to America, Australia, Brazil, wherever you went, we have seen better. We have benefited from better. We have lived better. And the best we got to offer Liberia, that to go back and room in nightclubs and drink our mineral water bottle tray everywhere. That's the best we can offer. We are not even able to organize a community meeting in the diaspora without fighting each other. We are not even able to come together as a community and collect $10 and tell the people how much money we collect, how much money we spend. But we have the same audacity to put our mouths on people. We all here, we sit here, we form part of corrupt political parties and be brave to pass around and say, UP USA, ANC USA, this USA. Let me tell you today, I dare you to name me one political party that is run properly in the Republic of Liberia. How can we come here, benefit from better, know better, and then decides to go back to our people instead of showing them different? We tell them, say, no, the nyama nyama y'all been doing here, not correct. Let's do it worse than y'all. Let me know if I'm wrong, please. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm losing my mind. But I live in Canada. I've lived here. I've seen better. I've learned that if you want to know whether an organization is well run, you should ask for the audited financials. I've learned to know that if you want to know if an organization is well run, look at how they spend resources. Look at how they treat people's resources that are entrusted in their hands. So why would I go Liberia and lower that standard by any margin? And you don't need anybody more sophisticated to account for people's resources. No, when you get it, you say, here's what we got. When you spend it, you say, here's what we spent. I've said it. Unfortunately, we'll have to pick one of the people on the ballot every election. But any political party, before I join any political party, you must produce audited financials every year. Now, the reason why when the election over, when funny Lebanese and all other people that show and start getting BB contracts, you're worried. You know why? Because you haven't seen how the organization is run. If you cannot produce audited financials for a small political party that you are running, then you want me to entrust you with the whole country? And by the way, in these parties, there are accountants. There are lawyers. But no, their accountant knowledge, everything disappears the moment they get in political parties. By extension, the same thing we do in the churches. And make it look like Jesus is lying out on the altar and say, anybody be transparent and be accountable to your congregation, I will strike you dead. So let us face it. You know what? Let me stop here and take some of the comments. I know there are a lot of comments. Anthony, can we go to the comments? Let me try and respond to some of the comments here. Joe Pin said, well said, Leo Humphrey Jabate said, political hegemony has never produced great results in unifying a country. Sadly, in Liberia, people aren't far-sighted to see problems from distance. In as much as they aren't affected directly, the self-concept is destroying the country. Thank you for your contribution, Humphrey. Edison Pajibo, Dr. Pajibo said, Mr. Leo Johnson, there are two main streams of disciplines. The supermarket courses that are more theoretical and the boutique courses that are more technical, practical skills driven. All of them are very useful for national development in as much as we give them the proportion they need. Skill set is more needed today than hard set. I agree with you, Dr. Pajibo, but all I'm saying right now, we do not have the capability of delivering the other stream. We don't have the resources. We don't have the qualified technicians. We don't have the qualified professors that are needed. We don't have the kind of resources, facilities, research, textbooks, educational materials. So I agree with you. So let's not pretend to deliver something that we don't have. Nathan Blaman says, this brother is actually telling us how to move our country forward. Thank you, Nathan, for your contribution. John Henna says, if you begin a PhD program today, you apologize for your statement and your sentiments. Just so you know, John, I'm not saying acquiring a PhD is a bad thing. I'm not saying acquiring a PhD is not a great form of education. All I'm saying to you is right now in Liberia, it has proven that we do not have the ability to deliver that type of quality education. So why are we pretending to? My comment has nothing to do with PhDs. I respect PhDs. My professors were PhDs. So I gave it all its due credit and the hard work that people do. Like I said, it is a form of education. Just as your PhDs are important, it is the same way our elders in the countryside who are experts in what they do, but because they don't read and write English, we've dismissed them. The same way I would never dismiss a PhD student or a PhD education, I would never dismiss an industry-based education as well. They are all equally important on the same pedestal. That's all I'm saying. Nathan Blama said, I'm amazed by this guy's brilliance. He has a point. Listen to him. He's an asset to our country. Thank you, Nathan. Vahu Mende Men said, our Liberian citizens has the belief that when they enter government, they will corrupt. Then they will be rich. Thank you for your contribution. Humphrey Jabade said, I agree with you on a statement that marginalization of significant fraction of the population of a country is a recipe for chaos. Thank you, Humphrey. Edison Paji was a citizen of what? The 16 or more separate nations before the arrival of settlers or citizens of the independent state named by Goodlow Harper in 1824. I don't see anything wrong with dual citizenship in as much as it will not create a class that will not alienate others. I agree with you, Dr. Pajibo. Exactly. Citizenship of exclusion is what we've always witnessed. It's time for us to include. Margaret and Mapu Dyson say, yes, oh, they cover themselves from being persecuted. And of course, the EJS and CDC government are in pursuit to get persistent in 2023 who will not persecute them. I didn't follow that quite closely, but thank you. Jesus is coming soon. Beware, Prince. Leo, in Liberia, if you do not speak your local language tribe, you feel most civilized and think you have control over English, or you're an Englishman. So you see people refusing to speak their local languages. Some are even ashamed of identifying themselves with their local languages. Thank you for your contribution. Senkpare say, I agree with you. Basa Akpere should have been a general language. We don't need to go to general right now. I say we should teach all. Let's teach all of our 16 languages. Dr. Pajabo say, carving out a national character is first and foremost a function of a defined language or group of languages that distinguishes a people identity from those of others. And a language must be liked very much and proudly spoken in public gatherings. I agree. And our languages are distinctly defined. All of them are. And that is the reason why teaching them now will help us to develop the other pieces that are missing rather than running away from it. I agree with you, Dr. Pajabo. I don't disagree. Seattle Townsend said, that's brilliant. It's important to pass on the languages. Thank you. Seattle Townsend said, because I suspect the country devil is actually a human hiding under a costume. So what about the Osanta that passes around? If you think the country devil is a human hiding under a costume, then go to the Sunday Bush, go to the Sunday Society. And then you can prove that even if it were, does that give anybody the right to dismiss it or to denigrate it? I don't think so. Seattle Townsend, my own sister, say, Leo, what's the distinction between what we call country devil and a real oracle? Country devil is a Western name to demonize our culture. It has no basis whatsoever. It was brought in by Westerners. The oracle of our traditions are the custodians of our culture, are the people who inhabit our culture, who we look up to for guidance. So we don't call them country devil. That's the Westerners that brought that name because the word devil is a negative connotation. So they try to use it to demonize our traditions. And then we got brainwashed into accepting it. That is the reason why today we see many brands of Christianity who call our people demons, but practice white fraternity in their churches and call it okay. Edison Pajibo said the display of Liberian culture through dancing at festivals is not enough. The values of that culture should be crafted into our character. Liberia needs a national character that should display the collective Liberian psychology. The American says the American dream. The Ghanaian says the Ghanaian dreams. What do we say as Liberians? Dr. Pajibo, I say the Liberian dream. The starting point is Liberian languages. Emmanuel Jackson, I really support your thought process about how our future as a nation must be directed, especially thinking only foreign investments will develop or make our nation what we want it to be. Instead, we have everything we need as a people to move into the future, harnessing all the opportunities at our exposure and disclosure. Paraphrasing most of your podcasts in 2021. I fully agree. Thank you so much for being a very, very prudent follower here of the Liberian dream. So I think those are some of our comments. I don't know if there are more, or we will keep on going here for the second. Support your comments. I will do another round of comments. But let's go into more of our topics here. Talk about the stupidity of voodoo economics in Liberia and the IMF. It's another problem. So in Liberia, this was the most recent one, those of you who follow. We've decided, again, to exclude almost 80% of the entire Liberian economy. And we decided to only capture 20. So the few Lebanese stores, the few hotels, Lebanese hotels, the Indian hotels that are in the Sinkat Belt and up to Mamba Point, we capture all of them and then we say that is the Liberian economy. That is not true. I will argue that 75% of our people don't do businesses in those Lebanese supermarkets and Indian supermarkets or those hotels. They go to Rela Market. They go to Gobacho Market. They go to Watasa. That's why almost 75 to 80% of the Liberian economy persists. But we've made our choice to only capture 20%, and then we feed that number into the IMF. And then the IMF make their voodoo predictions and bring them to us that the Liberian economy will grow next year. And then we argue in the face of abject poverty, hardship, starvation, rampant mental health crisis, and have the audacity to sit there and say the Liberian economy is growing for the few Lebanese people that you are capturing. But it's not growing for the 70 to 75% of our people that are operating. It is not. The sooner we can start to capture the real Liberian economy, the sooner we can start to have a serious conversation, the sooner the IMF itself can start to change its voodoo numbers that is putting out there. I argue that if IMF numbers are voodoo, It does not make sense. Garbage in, garbage out. They affect about 20% of the real Liberian economy. So the numbers they are predicting it for the benefit of about 20% of the people operating in the Liberian economy. So stop wasting your time on the IMF until you can figure out in Liberia, until we can figure out how to collect proper data and capture the fulsome or the wholesomeness of the Liberian economy. And the number, you will not need an IMF to predict for you. You yourself will be able to see how bleak the picture is or how great the picture is if you can capture the numbers. But you know why you yourself are not able to interpret it? Because you're only capturing 20% of the numbers. You go to the Lebanese supermarket. How many times do you see the supermarket full? It's the few people that are making US dollars that can shop. But go to Relay. Any day, any hour of the day you go to Relay, it's overcrowded with people transacting. Hundreds of thousands of dollars changes hands in Relay market, the Gobacho market, Douala and Waterside every day. You consciously decided that you will ignore those people. They don't form part of the economy. Only the few Lebanese people. And in both ways, not just capturing the numbers, also the taxes, the revenue, controlling the revenue that are there. That's voodoo economics. And that was my argument. I also argue in one of my podcasts that it's time to stop this nonsense. Whole day we're chasing Aslamita. You want Aslamita want to solve all the country problem because the money iron ore. You know how long people money iron ore in Liberia? Money go in Liberia? We've become so bad that we've avoided our greatest asset as a country and made a decision our greater assets are rubber, iron ore, diamond. Man, you didn't put a thing on the ground. Why you guarantee fighting over them? Name me one country that gold has developed, or diamond, or iron ore, or rubber. Even the great South Africa, the great Nigeria oil. The greatest asset of the Republic of Liberia is its youth. I dare not argue any other. The higher the Zogo population continue to increase in Liberia, I care less how many gold you mine or how much iron ore and diamond you mine. Liberia will be a ghost town, a graveyard of crimes, will be a graveyard of drug addicts, will be a place dreams go to die. You can mine all the diamonds you want, mine all the gold you want, mine all the iron ore you want. If you continue to neglect Liberia's greatest asset, which is the young people, or which are the young people, until you start to invest in their future, you wouldn't need gold or diamond to develop the country. Gone are those days. We're not in the 60s and 70s here. Who need gold or diamond? We need a laptop. We need the right softwares. We need the right networks. We need internet access. Stop wasting our time on gold and diamond. You're still chasing this old Cold War mentality of who have more rubber. The point I tell you, they don't want rubber anymore. They got synthetic. So they devalue it for you. You're chasing a losing battle. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't claim your natural resources. You wouldn't even need to be doing a type of extensive mining and destroying our drinking water in our villages until we can put a curb on the increasing number of Zogo population. There is no amount of mineral resources in Liberia that can save us. It will not happen. Because no matter how much money you make from those mineral resources, when you finish building the road, the Zogos will build a den and sleep on it at night, pee and poo on it at night. They will still harass people. People will get their nice cars. They will break into it until you start to focus on where it should matter. The greatest asset of the Republic of Liberia are the young people. Without them, there is no future. I argue in one of my recent podcasts that the future of Liberia is Zogo. They are constituting the majority of the population. If you don't put a stop to it, the future of Liberia will look like what we're calling Zogo today. All of our children eventually will start to become drug addicts, will start to deal with mental health crisis. Even in the schools will become centers for Zogos. The sooner or later we can focus on this issue, the better. But let's move ahead. Because we have other things. Singapore is an example. Now, as Singapore ain't got gold. Singapore ain't got diamond. Singapore ain't got iron ore. One of the most prosperous countries on planet Earth. This 1960, 1950 mentality you are running around the place with, we'll go diamond, we got iron ore, we got gold, we got diamond, we got rubber. Stop it. We want to hear people saying now that there are more people, more young people now who are becoming business owners. There are more young people who are becoming employers. There are more, we want to see the statistics that a lot of young people graduating from post-secondary education are actually now transitioning. They are becoming the universities in Liberia are becoming the new hub of economic engine for the Republic of Liberia. That's what we want here. Your leaders or your Asalamita Bene, they see money there, you will steal and put in your pocket. That's what we should be worried about. But we'll take a break. Let's read more comments here because we have more comments that have been coming in. Let's read our next set of comments. John Conway says, I take a different view. All the natural and human resources of Liberia are valuable assets. We need to equally develop policies and systems to harness all of these resources to maximum benefit to Liberia. That's what we've been saying since 1950, right? We've never focused on the other side. So let's put some energy. I argue that the greatest, I didn't say going down on the resources, but the greatest of them all are the young people of Liberia. So when you want to invest to prioritize, focus on the greatest. Dua Zuba says human resources is a good asset to our country, the young people. Thank you for your contribution, sir. Dua Zuba says, again, our human resources is a good asset to our country. I've read that one from our brother Dua Zuba. Thank you for that contribution. Jimmy Eastman says, I still support the fact that we need a general native language, but several languages will reduce efficiency and productivity. One language reduces the time it takes for explanation. One language builds the foundation for strong communication. Jargons and buzzwords are oftentimes part of what is used to set strategies. Having one strong language allows people to easily understand goals, objectives, and expectations. It also improves culture and camaraderie. So I don't disagree with the argument, my brother Jimmy Eastman, but my problem is in Ghana, you know how many languages they have in Ghana? We can be completely in Nigeria. You know how many they have? They have many. Let's learn all of them. No longer am I willing for us to marginalize any of our languages in favor of other. By the way, those languages are not only spoken in Liberia, they are spoken straight up to Mali, up to East Africa. The Loma, the Bassa, the Gio, the Pele, they are spoken across the region, straight up to East Africa. So yes, they have a sizable population. Larama Shenki Yonton said, do we have a current stats on the Zogo population? What's the size in proportion to other youth? We don't have it because nobody's collecting the actual data, but just walk around Liberia. Even villages now have Zogo centers. Ernest C. Okotio said, nation building is not theory. You use your hands, steel to boots, jeans and tools, hard hats. There is labor force. Thank you, Ernest, for your contribution. Drake Esoteric says, on the point of turning you into a technical university or college, I beg to defer because we professors teaching currently at UL are not technically teachers, but academic teachers. We can build technical college or university by taking the $20 million the lawmakers put in the budget for the president alone for the $54 million in the budget for 103 lawmakers. UL is part of what makes Liberia. Therefore, replacing the technical college will be a replacement of history. No, turn UL campus into a museum of higher learning. No, I disagree with you, my brother. UL right now is not able to do what it says it wants to do. So y'all want us to just be lying to our children, eh? Y'all want to be lying to young people? UL is incapable, unable to deliver a research-based university education. It does not have the means, nor the resources, nor the financial wherewithal, nor the expertise it takes. It's not a criticism, it's a fact. Laraman says it is not possible to teach all of our vernacular based on popular ethnic group. It's possible. In every county, our vernaculars are geographically situated in every county. What's wrong with introducing them from ABC? When we're teaching ABC to our children in English, don't we teach it to them orally to memorize and sing songs? What's wrong with going Grand Bassa, mandating Bassa to be taught in every school in Grand Bassa County? Go to Bon County, do the same. Go to Lofa, mandate all 5, but you're only required to learn 1. Francis C. Wilson say, not only is not growing, those funds are exiting Liberia, probably almost tax-free. Thanks for your contribution, Francis. Edison Pajibo say, we all have missed the mark. The Liberian economy must start with agriculture, just as Americans and Canadians started with the prairies. The South Africans started with selvas. The Argentinians started with the pampas, and some African countries are utilizing the savanna and grassland. I thought many of our community colleges we have started at land grant agriculture colleges. I think you meant started as land grant agriculture colleges. Sad to say, they are going to be like University of Liberia, graduating, pen pushing, and job seeking graduates. I agree with you, but Dr. Pajibo, can we capture the economy first, the one that exists? We're not even capable of capturing the existing economy. I agree with you. Agriculture, yes, is the way to go. But we're not even capable of capturing the economy in Rela Make, in Douala, in Watasa. So just adding more to it does not help us either if we don't capture it. Vivian Wama say, y'all please come to make Liberia very great again. Thank you, Vivian. We are all there. We're not going anywhere. Hamilton Zelly said, we Liberians need to put on our thinking cap than glorifying the IMF and the World Bank when they loan us millions of dollars. The IMF and World Bank have become the determinants of our future as a nation. The IMF and World Bank have turned poor third world nations, including Liberia, into loan addicts. Most of your arguments are quite accurate. Ernest Garner Smith said, We can teach all of our tribes. I agree with you, my brother. Every single one of our languages should be valued. We should not drive any of them into extinction. Let's celebrate them. It's practical to actually do it, and even teaching English that we've been teaching since 1847. We still can speak it properly. Joe Pin say, we as young people understand our worth. When we as young people understand our worth, I think is what you meant, then we will stop being used as tools for the so-called politicians. This country rebuilding lies in our hands. Thank you very much, Joe Pin. Kankoya David said, Johnson, there are many languages in African cultures, but they do have one primary language that is spoken by all. Basa is an English easy language to learn, and it would be best for. Why are we taking one over the other? This is where discrimination and marginalization comes from. While Basa is easy, Pele is the largest language. So should I go around too and say everybody might be forced to learn Pele? What's wrong with teaching all of them? All of them. Let's teach all of them. Let's not intentionally drive any of our languages into extinction. They all come with a certain valuable piece of our identity. Sheriff Herdala Senior says, Mandingo is the only tribe with its own alphabet and well-established school system. That is wrong, Sheriff. That's not true. Mandingo is not the only. Pele is. In fact, Va is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, existing written form. So, no, Mandingo is not. And let's not start picking and choosing which one better than the other. They are all equally valuable to us. Emmanuel Jackson said converting UL into a technical college is a unique ideal. But would it be the responsibility of the Liberian legislature, a proposal from the Ministry of Education to the executive branch for review and recommendations? I'll leave that to the policy makers, my brother. I don't want to start jumping into who's responsible. The same people that are responsible for UL now are the same people supposed to be responsible to transform it into an economic engine and an economic driver for the Liberian economy. Laraman said, you are doing well. This platform highlights more of the problems. Let's focus on practical solutions. All the solutions are not here today. From teaching our languages to capturing our local economies in the proper way possible. All of that I've talked about, many other things. So the issue of dual citizenship turning into an economic argument and not a political argument. All the way I've talked about cultural understanding and stopping to stop using our traditions as marketing content. Laraman, you hear any? My brother, go by and play the show from the beginning. Or you just prone to focusing on problems. Go by and listen. You'll hear some of the solutions. Ernest Garner Smith Jr. said, let the authorities in Liberia shut up about agriculture when we have a national budget which allocates less than 5% to agriculture. I agree with you. We're not serious. Let's just forget about the government who's talking about agriculture because they're not serious. Africanus Nathan say, it is possible to teach all of our languages starting from kindergarten foundation. It can be done. It is actually practical to be done, my brother. Thank you for your contribution. So I think those are a lot of our comments there right now. So let's get back. As I wind down, one of the few things I would like to wrap on here is the hypocrisy of the Liberian Constitution that I've talked about. The Liberian Constitution is a fraudulent document. And it's so hurtful that all of the people we hail today as legal luminaries and legal experts, none of them have come out to admit it and say it, that the Liberian Constitution is fraud, including those who are signatories and pass around and boast that they are signatories to it. They took one fraudulent document from 1847, which was photocopied from the United States. And by the way, one thing you need to realize, the United States Constitution has almost been transformed. The amount of statutes that have been striking down by the Supreme Court of the United States because of how discriminatory and racist the United States Constitution was. So they have struck down so many laws in the U.S., laws that women can vote and all the things that were in the U.S. Constitution. Even the very dual citizenship law that we're arguing today in Liberia was in the U.S. Constitution. They struck it down, where U.S. citizens could be denied their natural-born citizenship if they went into another country and participated in the politics and took citizenship there. An Israeli challenged it, and the U.S. Supreme Court struck it down as a discriminatory law. But they say in Liberian Constitution today, our Constitution is a fraudulent document. When our brothers and sisters who were oppressed for so long, our great-grandfathers and mothers who participated in the so-called progressive revolution, when they were struggling for so long, and under the oppression of the true party government, what they did not think about was that it's not enough to only fight to tear down. You also need to learn how to build. They only focus on fighting. After they fought and overthrew Talbot now and tore things down, they started looking at each other. Nobody in the room knew how to build. So it didn't take them 6 months. They started fighting among each other to kill each other. So they took a fraudulent document from 1847 and then flip it around. Here is a comment. Justice Gloria Mususka, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Liberia, agreed with me that the Liberian Constitution is corrupt. So those of you who still argue that, I will leave it to you. This is somebody who understands what we're talking about, right? Let's leave it right there. Thank you so much for putting that comment up. And thanks to Justice Laura Musu Scout for coming up boldly to agree with that statement, because I would have hoped this is what our legal people will be doing, to admit to us. But you know why I hold them accountable now? Because most of them are still alive. And they don't have the simple decency to come and tell us, hey, this document, Samuel Doe put us in a building, surrounded us with AK-47 and told us what to change and what not to change, including inserting in it that there are crimes they were committing, they can never be persecuted for it. To this date, Article 97 still has it in there. We got some Liberians who are super citizens, and some of them are still alive. What do they need? Burma family, all of them, they were members of the PRC. You know why I say so? Because all of them are beginning cabinet ministers, got recruited and were made military personnel. All of them. All of them were members. So none of them can be persecuted for any crimes that were committed. Burma family were Minister of Foreign Affairs, you were Minister of Education, and then Minister of Foreign Affairs as well. All of them, you name them, all of the progressives. But today they run away from it. But then they don't have the simple decency to tell us that this document that we are relying on is fraudulent. So you can never guarantee good governance coming out of the Constitution of Liberia. It is not possible. The document is fraudulent and corrupt. So it is impossible for any good governance process to come out of a document that in and of itself is corrupt. How will you take a handful of people and make them super citizens over the rest of their brothers and sisters? Then you say you expect that same document to be the same document that can produce good governance. Let's be honest with ourselves. So let us wrap up here. And I'll wrap up by telling all of you that the hypocrisy of the Liberian Constitution is our biggest challenge. And the best solution is to rewrite the entire Liberian Constitution. Ernest Garner Smith Jr. said oppressive and racist constitution. Is to rewrite the entire Constitution of Liberia in the best interest of all Liberians and not to protect 300 families or those who were members of the People's Redemption Council. And in doing that, we should fully acknowledge customary law. It should not be taught at Louis Arthur Graham School of Law as an elective. It should become mandatory for any lawyer, anyone that will practice law in Liberia. You should understand what customary law is, the traditional norms and laws of our society. Because if it wasn't for customary law, Liberia would be one of the most chaotic and lawless places on planet Earth. You don't have enough police people to even provide order in Monrovia. So if it wasn't for customary law in our traditional sites, in the counties, in the villages, in the towns where you never see police people there, how do you think they'll be living there peacefully? How do you think there will not be thieves rampantly just looting people and just raping people everywhere? It's because of customary law. My brothers and sisters, the problem to Liberia is not gloomy. If anything, it is extremely hopeful. Those of you who pass around and think Liberia is doomsday, let me bet you today, it is at the darkest hour of the night that the day breaks. We will buckle up our seatbelt. And I want to urge those of you who are interested in nation building to know that nation building transcends the presidency of any one president. Nation building has to be a robust process that is not dependent on anyone, that will stand up against bad governance. Regardless of what you throw at nation building, it does not stop the process. And let me tell you how that is done. It is done when all of us do our part within our means. It can only be done if we all commit that what we've got to do within our means, we may never be alive to see it flourish. We may not be alive. This is the scary part of it. So you either choose that you want to be part of nation building, or you choose that you want to be part of the corrupt system or honesty as much as you can see in your lifetime. Because I would dare you, those of us who want to commit to nation building, we've already made our resolution that we may not be alive. If you're lucky to be alive, you thank God. But we may not be alive to see the fruit of the work we have to do. And I can give you examples. Ask Dr. Martin Luther King. He made that resolution and he was killed in his early 30s. If you had told Dr. King that the world would have been transformed, that the power of his work would have ballooned this entire globe in the way that it does and the way people evoke his presence, he would have looked at you and laughed. In fact, from the beginning, Dr. King was a very lonely man. People thought he was crazy. Most people felt Malcolm X way was the best way to fight against the white people. People look at the black leaders in the black community, look at Dr. King and told him and say, you're so crazy that the only way you can see black people being free is in your dreams, is when you go to bed and lay down. The only way you think black people can be free, that's how sucker you are. That's what people told Dr. Martin Luther King. And don't forget, To those of you who are religious leaders, Dr. King was a full-time pastor. Most of the things we listen today and call his speeches, they were his sermons. A lot of them. So those of you who are religious leaders today and have failed and have brought the church into disrepute because you cannot even demonstrate simple transparency. You pretend like Jesus lives with you in the church. Jesus does not. That is the reason why Jesus refused to build a church on this earth when he was here. Every time Jesus went in the earth, look, the church was the only, Jesus did not even call taxpayers serpents and vipers. It was in the church. He called the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the elders of the church, you serpents and vipers. Jesus didn't exercise violence anywhere else. The only place Jesus exercised violence was in the church. When he flocked people out of the church because of how disgusting they were. So while you build cathedrals in Liberia of churches, while you collect thousands of dollars from poor people in Liberia, and you walk the streets and see young little girls at 10, 13 prostituting because they cannot afford food to eat. You open luxurious schools where even the members of your church cannot afford for their children to go. You walk past people you call Zogos, but you invite their perpetrators, the people who destroy them, to your churches and call them senators and representatives and honorable, and you honor them. You sit in the nation and allow them to desecrate the altar of God, and you dare not open your mouth. You are afraid. I want to warn you. I want to let you know that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a full-time pastor. He was nothing else but a pastor, and he died one. But he was the force for change that transformed a nation without ever meddling into politics or running for politics. So take it as a food for thought. This is the time that every church in Liberia should have 2 to 3 rehabilitation homes right on this compound to be supporting our brothers and sisters today who are victims of poverty and the war. So that wherever their perpetrators come, the warlords, the war criminals, whenever they show up, they can see them there, that somebody else is taking care of them, so they can confront their victims in their faces at every moment when they go to the church, to the house of God. Every church should have a rehabilitation home in Liberia. Every church that has a school in Liberia should have a free component attached to it. What else are you raising or the offering and the thousands of dollars to buy yourself BMWs and new suits? Every church in Liberia should produce audited financial report, because God is a transparent God. Every church in Liberia should have a full-time accountant. Every church in Liberia should pay the salaries of its musicians and other workers in the church. Stop telling them that God will bless them, when you are the one benefiting and profiteering from their honest effort to worship God. Then you tell them, say they can do secular music, they can only do gospel music. But we're almost out of time. So let's read more comments here, and then we can actually wrap up our afternoon. Kankoya David said, Johnson, you won't believe it. Introduction to Liberian law is an elective at our law school. I was shocked as a legal practitioner when I saw it. See that? I agree. I'm shocked. I didn't know that. Ernest Garner Smith Jr. said, local government style of governance is unique to our culture. I agree. It is. And it's about time we start to study and embrace it. Ernest Garner Smith Jr. again said, even our form of governance is a mess. Dr. Edison Pajibo said, a constitution is a living document, a dynamic instrument susceptible to change. How many changes have been effected in that document? It has outlived its usefulness. I fully agree, and it should be redone. A new constitution should be written. Joe Pin said, excellent presentation, Leo. Thank you, Joe. Good to see you. Humphrey Jabate said, we have a lot of work to do if we decide to move forward as a nation. These are few things to look at: the seal, rename our cities, to reflect our cultural identity, review business ownership. My brother, these things are just symptoms. When you change the foundational pieces, those pieces will fall in place. Not just Liberia, but Africa must redefine what democracy is for us. Thank you. I agree. Reverend Kankoya Davis. Sharp Malikebu say, I believe in multilingualism, but to have all 27 languages taught in school can have negative cognitive impact on students. It slows down your ability to retrieve information on demand. Where you come from with this, my brother? I know people who speak 16 languages. I know people who've learned. My brother, we went Cote d'Ivoire. We learned Yakuba French overnight. We went Ghana. We learned Tree. We learned Hausa. We learned Igbo. We learned Mandarin. We learned Kannada. Who told you there's a limitation to learning languages? But nobody said you should learn all 27. No. We are saying let the Bassa people pass on their language to their young ones. Let the Pele people pass it on. Each of these languages has a piece of who we are embedded in it. It has a piece of our identity code. We will not intentionally drive any of our languages into extinction. No. What's wrong with that? And right now we can speak all 27. If we're speaking all of them right now, then what's wrong with teaching all of them, my brother? I beg to actually defer. Do we have any other comments to go through before we wrap up here? All right. I think we've taken all of our comments. So ladies and gentlemen, overall, as we wrap up this year in review, as we prepare for 2022, I want all of you to think about it. Nation building is where we should focus on and not on presidential elections. Nation building is where we should focus our energy and not on political campaigns and political parties. Because nation building is practical and is doable. All it requires is all of us doing our part within our means. If raising your children to be exemplary citizens is what you are able to do, do your part. If helping your little high school you graduated from practice sanitary habits so that they're clean and can take care of the school, do your part. If all you can do is uplift your family from poverty by breaking the cycle of poverty on them, please do your part. Everybody. That's what nation building is. Because you know what? Doing your part, raising your children will transcend any press. All the president will come and go. You will still be in that process. You know why nation building is important? Because trying to elevate your high school from the dungeons could take 10 to 20 years. So you're not focused on who becomes the next president. The resilience of nation building is that regardless of who is president, you will find a way to work around them. In spite of the poverty, in spite of the hardship, in spite of the corruption, in spite of the deception, in spite of it all, the same spirit we evoked during the war. When the guns were shooting, when the bombs were dropping, we still went out and found food to protect our children. We still found a way to survive. In spite of it all, it is time that we evoke. It is the same type of spirit, the core. According you activate the core of nation building, and the attitude is, regardless of what you throw at me, I will find a way, one way or the other, because the project that we have of nation building is 30 to 50 years. It's not the length of a presidential term or 2 presidential terms. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This has been 2021 in review. And thank you all of you who join on Focus on Liberia all the time here. Great platform. Continue to share the great story of Focus on Liberia. Also invite you to support this work. A lot of this work is done through the honest effort of our brother Dennis Jah and Anthony Sie. A lot of the time, his own personal resources to get this platform going. So I encourage all of you, all of us, to contribute, to keep Focus on Liberia growing even bigger and better. We need to make sure this platform reaches Liberia on the ground as a station in Liberia. So please, as you wrap up your 2021 year and look for things to support, let Focus on Liberia be one of those options on your list. My name is Nupolu Johnson, and I came to you live from Focus on Liberia from the beautiful city of Hamilton in Canada. And I say to you, the Liberian dream is where each one of us can do our part within our means to facilitate nation building. Have a good week.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.